Hey guys, and welcome back to the Model Car Cup Series. Today we're going to be taking a look at some tips on detailing and accurizing a 1981 Buick Regal stock car. Stick around, we'll show you which one. Today's trivia question: Richard Petty's last race was celebrated with a large party at the Georgia Dome. Which band played? Hey guys, because of the detailed pictures in this video, I went ahead and opened the trunk, and I want to show you how I do that. There's three ways that typically it can be done, one of which is you take the back edge of a number 11 blade, make sure it's a new blade, and you can just score across the lines. And you can, by the way, on a street car, you could open the doors that way too, and slowly score until it goes through. You can also use, this is new for me and I love it. This is, to me, is plastic scriber 2, and there's 2 extra blades in the handle down here, but run it out, lock it down, and this thing is awesome as far as a panel line scriber. And you see how thin it is. You could take and just scribe down through there, take your time, and this thing will really open them up real good too. The other thing I like to use is Model Car Garage makes a set of, it might be easier if I take the camera down here, makes a great set of photo etch. These are on a photo etch fret, and if you can see the teeth, if I can get down there, this is the ultra fine, and you see how they round around the tip up there. These are great, and there's also some more coarse, and these just chuck right into your X-Acto handle. So if you got a few extra of those, and as you can see, I got plenty of them laying everywhere, but they're great little tools for removing things. A little bit later on, we'll get into a couple of things on the firewall that we need to retrieve. For example, the water overflow here. This is perfect for getting in there and just cutting that right off too. But we'll touch on that here in a little bit. But once you get the trunk open, and I've got this really rough right now. I've got some sanding and stuff to do. But I always put a piece of tape in there to act as a hinge when I'm just checking everything. And I think the car looks good. If you're going to go to that level of detail, have the deck lid open where you can see the fuel cell area and that stuff. And I'm going to do something that's going to cause Lucas C's head to explode. And I agree with him in that, people spend a lot of time on detailing an engine bay, and then they take a toothpick, which is way out of scale and doesn't look right. So, Luca, I know your head's about to explode because I'm using that, but we'll be looking at the ribbing in there and inside the deck lid here in just a minute. But I did want to share with you how I cut that open. And by the way, if you have other methods for opening up panels, by all means, share them with all of us, because, hey, I love learning anything new, and I'm open to try anything. Okay, let's get over to the car we're going to be doing. I'm sure this is going to shock you, but we're going to be taking a look at Richard Petty's 1981 Regal Daytona 500 winner. And let me back this off here just a little bit. And this is the Salvino JR Models kit in 1/24th scale. And of course, this is the old moles from Monogram. I have built Thunderbirds, Tauruses, Grand Prix, a lot of Grand Prix, the different ones, and I have built a lot of Monogram stock cars, tons of them, and my share of AMT as well, but mostly the old Monogram kits. But I'm going to tell you something that many of you will go, oh, that's ridiculous. No, that's not true. I have never built a Buick Regal. Of all of the Monogram kits I have built, and the Square Birds, all of them, but I have never built a Regal. This is on my list to do, this car down the road. But anyway, Let's get over to the detailed pictures, and I want to give a shout out real quick to a couple of people at the museum. Sharon Petty Farlow, Richard's daughter, and one of his girls, and Bonnie. When you go into the museum, you can't help but fall in love with her. But heads off to them. They gave me, and I get this, unlimited access to this car. So I've got you and I some great research pictures here. We'll be going through them and seeing what changes we'll have to do to this one. And keep in mind, too, that most of the teams ran pretty much the same configurations. There were a few subtle differences from team to team. But overall, because I've seen inside the trunk of other cars, and I know where the stuff was the same on most of them. And, well, enough of that. Let's get over to the pictures, and we'll take a look. If your answer to the trivia question was Alabama, you would be absolutely correct. Each car in the museum has a placard describing the car, giving a little detail on it. And on the Buick you see here, it says 1981 Buick Regal. Richard won his 7th Daytona 500 in this car. He had 3 wins, 12 top 5s, and 16 top 10s. He finished 8th in Winston Cup points. This car is best known for the gas and go car, of course referring to the Daytona 500. For our detail look at this car, I want to start at the back of the car. And I've always been you've heard me say this before, the paint on these things is just absolutely beautiful. And a lot of people didn't like the little square cars when they went to them. This particular body style, I really liked. I like the nose on it for some reason. And as we look at the trunk, again, a good look at that great paint job. But I want you to look at the bottom of the window in the back. You notice the aluminum straps and the polished aluminum or the chrome strips around the window. But notice on the bottom, it's petty blue. There's not window molding around that. And here's a look at those straps and the molding along the top, but not on the bottom. And I'll look down the top and you see that aluminum look, or the trim, the molding around the windows. I thought that was just unique that there wasn't one across the bottom. Next up, let's take a look at the fuel filler. Now you notice on the car how high it is, and on our kit it's pretty low. Now you can shave that off and move it up, or I like to use a piece of K&S aluminum tubing and just drill out a hole up there and put that in. You could probably use a piece of plastic tubing, Plastruptor Evergreen tubing as well, but it would need to be relocated for this car. And here's a look at the Opera window, and you notice the chrome trim around the Opera window, and also note that the separation stripe between the vermilion and the petty blue is white in this case. Now the Daytona 500 car, that was navy blue or dark blue. And I know when these cars went from racetrack to racetrack, that changed going back to the Chargers too. Some of them had the white stripes that we looked at in our opening video to Model Car Cup Series, and some of them had the navy blue. Here's a look at the C-pillar. And next up, as we look at the back again, we're going to be getting inside the car now. And I'm going to take a few minutes to go over a few things in here. Notice right here the ribbing up underneath the deck lid. And this is more like a factory type ribbing. And notice the hood hinges, or excuse me, the hinges for the trunk are not the ones that are molded into the car. Every team had their own little unique things. And I really didn't think about that until they opened it. Then I realized that, hey, this is different. And also up on the spoiler there, you see the split in it. And if you did not know, that split's there for the body template to be able to fit down through there. Making this ribbing adds a lot of realism, because when you, well, as you see here, we have the trunk open and there's some sanding and stuff. The Sharpie marks there you see it needs to be smooth. But it's just a smooth piece of plastic. You can take evergreen as well as evergreen and Plastrux. Couldn't remember for a minute. And you can do a lot with it. Now you see here, this is alumina deck lid that I did underneath, as well as the bottom one is a Dodge Daytona. And you can use channel, evergreen channel to make that, because it gives it that hollow look. And if you remember, you can go back and look at the Regal. You would need to do that with that too on the sides. But it's really not hard. It takes a little time, but it's not really hard at all. I use a 3M sanding stick to get the rounded parts up in there, and you can get those at any auto parts store. In fact, I think Walmart still carries them. But we'll get into tools and that kind of stuff later. And next up, notice here the inside the trunk. What I want to look at here is look at that far right side. You see the wheel wells, how they and the bulkheads go right up against the body panels. Typically, when you're doing this with a model, you don't have you don't get that lucky most of the time. As you see here, when we've got the trunk open, you've got the wheel well and then the body panel, and there's a big gap right there. But that's an easy fix. If you have a contour gauge, we've gone over this before in some of the other videos, what a contour gauge is and how to use it. And we'll be touching on that again in some upcoming videos. But here you see I took the contour gauge and I got the shape I needed for the bulkhead, and then I just transferred that over to a piece of sheet plastic or a piece of aluminum. I think I've shared with you before, I love to use the an old lasagna pan, the bottom in it, that thin aluminum, because it really is pliable, it's easy to work with. And I'll transfer this over to usually a piece of cardstock, just a 3x5 card, and then transfer that over after I test fit everything. Then I transfer that to my metal or my sheet plastic, whichever one I'm using, and add that to it. And as you can see here, I've done it with the alumina. And you'll want to do that not just in the deck, in the trunk, but you'll want to do that up front too, where the firewall goes over to the body as well. And you can use a pounce wheel to add rivet looking work and all that stuff too. So it's easy to do. It really is. Next up is just a general look at what's in the trunk. We've got our fuel cell, we've got our fuel filter, we've got our sump tank, and you notice the angle iron looking stuff that is the straps for the fuel cell. And this is a little different configuration than typically we see, and instead of being raised like our kit is, this is flush, and that's an easy fix too. Another angle where you can see that angle iron there, and you see the way the roll bars are. And here you see the fuel line going to the fuel filter and then into the car, which from that point until it gets into the up to the firewall, it is in a tube, a metal tube, and we'll show you a picture of that coming up here too. And then we get over to our sump tank. Now you notice how high the sump tank is in this car. It's up really close to that wheel well, and it almost, with that top line, almost doesn't look like the trunk would close. And with our kit, you see how low it sits. It sits down in that well, and so we need to fix that. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to take where it sits down in that well, and we're going to detach the sump tank and take a piece of sheet plastic. You see we've removed it here. We're going to put a piece of sheet plastic here which raises that well or closes that well up. And I recommend using a thick piece of sheet plastic there to match the other side. And now you'll notice that not only were we able to move it forward up to the wheel well, but also notice how much higher it sits right up there, just like the real car. Here's a look at the lines. So when you're doing your plumbing lines, you see where and you see the cap there where the fuel filler was closed off. I think that's some regulatory thing that they can't have it, all that fuel stuff hooked up or anything. But you see the lines, how they come out of the tank. And right here, you can see the bracing that comes off of the chassis up to the body. It's a little dark in there, but you can see that. And now we're going to move up toward the cockpit, and there's some unique things here. Now, over on the far side floor, you see that metal tube, the petty blue metal tube. That's your fuel line that runs up through there. The shifter ball was black in this car. You see the steering wheel, and the coiled wire is the radio. Well, that goes to the radio and then up to the antenna. And the seat cover was out of it at this time. Right here you see the roll bar up top side had a piece of sheet metal between where the bars that brace the windshield are, and you notice how they're attached. And Detail Master makes a great set of these braces. And you see how they're riveted in down here on the dash. Same thing, top side. And the window clips up front, you notice the locations. And here's a look at one up close from the side. I always thought those were pop riveted in, but it's a hex nut. Now, I want to get over to this dash a minute. I talked to one of the guys and I asked, hey, what's the deal with this triangle thing over the instrument panel? And nobody could tell me. It wasn't a case that they couldn't tell me. They just didn't know. This is unique. I have no clue, and I haven't been able to find anyone that could tell me as of right now. But trust me, I am going to find out what the story with this triangle thing is. It ate me up. Dale Inman had just left, and I know he would have known, and I'm going to find out, and I'll pass that along when I do. But this was just really getting to me is, what is this thing? At first I thought it was an access panel to the gauge backs, but the rivet type things that are in there, and I don't know why you would do it in such a shape anyway. There's got to be some kind of unique thing to it. I just don't know what it is. But anyway, that just kind of, I have no clue. Let's see. Next up is, I tell you what, let's go up to the engine bay. From the front of the car, and when we got into the engine bay, oh man, this was awesome. There were some things in here I had no clue about, and great looking shots here. The first thing let's look at is going to be the suspension, and you notice on the chassis you've got a place for the dual shock setup like the kits come, but notice this car only had the single shock in the forward position, and the color of the A-arms, that dark blue that Petty Enterprises has used for eons. And again, you see a better shot here of that extra shock mount. The radiator, the fan shroud, and looking forward. And you see your plumbing lines, how they need to go, and we'll get into more of that when the oiling system over on the other side in just a minute. Another look at those A-arms. And just above the A-arm, that piece of aluminum is a heat shield between the valve cover and the, well, let's see here, the valve cover and the headers. And forgive me, as I'm doing this voiceover, the video is not cooperating with me some. Now this is on the driver's side, and we're looking at the suspension again. You see the jack screw bolt is along with the A-arm and the shock. And here's just some of that bracing and how it's tacked on to the fenders and then back over to the framework. Great forward shot of the engine. And now we're going to get up close, and I discovered some things I didn't know. Right here, you notice just to the right of the roll bar there, you see that the water overflow, and you see also the coil mounted on the firewall. Now our kit doesn't come that way, so we're going to need to take that tank off of the firewall to mount on that roll bar. So how we're going to do that is we're going to take our photo etch razor saw and we're going to go ahead and cut that off, and we'll make a mount out of just some thin sheet plastic, and then we will have that to be relocated, cleaned up and relocated back on that inside bar, and then we'll mount our coil on the firewall there. Now here you see the hood, well, I don't want to call them hinges, but the well, it kind of is a hinge thing, the braces that hold it up. And Detail Master again makes a great hood hinge set for that. You notice here the part of the cowl and the aluminum pieces that hold it in place, the back of the breather. Also the distributor cap, and the distributor, it's difficult to see here, but the wires are blue and the distributor cap is kind of a maroon color. Another look at that radiator and fan shroud. And you see here the overflow at the top of the radiator, and then the that extended tube that comes out of the bottom of the radiator. Look at the pulleys. It's a pretty tight fit in among all of this stuff. A lot of zip ties in here too, if you didn't notice. This is just some awesome stuff too. Now notice the valve covers are semi-gloss black, and they are Moroso. And I am looking right now for some small block Moroso valve covers. There's another look at the passenger side, and also notice how the radiator hose, the adapter is made there to the intake. Now, this is something I thought was unique. Typically when we see these oil coolers, they are just square, but you notice the unique shape at the top and the bottom. The outlet on the bottom, and as it goes over to the oil filter, And then we're going to get into that oil filter in just a minute. And you've got your sensor and your in and out that go to the pumps, and of course back around to the sump tank in the trunk. And another great look at these filters, the lines, the plumbing here. But check out this oil filter. STP 43RP Racing Series. Richard had his own oil filter. I think that's kind of cool. Hey, decal makers, we need this decal. So hopefully somebody's listening and we can come up with a set of these STP-43RP STP Racing Series oil filter decals. That would be cool. And by the way, this is a Laughlin chassis. And if you were wondering if it was a front or rear steer car, there's your steering box. It is a front steer. Typically, all of Laughlin's were front steer anyway. And let's get to take a look. We looked under the deck lid, under the trunk, and the ribbing in there. Let's take a look under the hood. A lot of it that's molded in, I've always just used what was molded in, but this one really has me thinking, because as we look at it, you notice you could use, I think, evergreen rod, just the really small stuff. And you notice that some of it, while it is up against the hood, some of it is not, which I thought, now that's kind of cool. Now here is a look again at the cowl and the bracing that holds it up from the top of the firewall. And this is on the other side. Now here we get into the front end of the car. And as we look at this nose, there's some things that will need to be changed, and there's some things that we won't have to do a thing with. First of all, the front end really resembles just what we've got. And note the turn signal covers that are on the bottom of the bumper. Those are pop riveted on. And you see here on our kit, they are the same. Now coming up to our headlight covers, we're going to have to do a little work right here, but it's not going to be very difficult at all. You've got the dual headlights on each side, and for this, now the kit comes with just a single piece on the right side. So what we'll need to do is, what I think I'm going to do is just take those center rivets out and take a thin piece of sheet plastic and just put that right in the center there, and we'll be cured. That'll fix it. Next is the like a stock bumper. This on the real car here. You notice the license plate bracket holes where you would put your license plate screws in, and you'll notice on the kit bumper they're there. So that looks really good. Something else, and by the way, you notice on the grill, it's a stock grill. You see the word Buick at the top, and of course our kit grill is the same. You've got the Buick on it. Really good stuff, guys. I enjoyed taking all these pictures, learning, studying the pictures, and you know, as you study some of these pictures, stop it and look at them, and you may discover stuff I haven't seen yet. That's the great thing about going back and looking at these things. You never know what you're going to run across. This was a really fun project to do. I'm excited about it, and I've done other cars, and I've got an appointment, or about to make an appointment to do 2 other cars up there. I'm not going to tell you which ones they are, but I'll show you, give you a quick look at a few things that we're going to be doing. But guys, thank you so much for tagging along with this. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been educational for you. I'm having fun, and I love to share this kind of stuff with you too. If you're not a subscriber, head on over, hit that subscription button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on anything. Give us a thumbs up, and by all means leave a comment. I won't know what to do, which directions to go if I don't hear from you. So love to hear from you. Head over to the Teespring store, our Model Car Cup series. We've got t-shirts in a couple different styles. We've got drinkware. We've got decals. Those decals have been selling really well, as well as some of the mugs. So guys, thanks again. Appreciate you tagging along. God bless, and I will see you in the next video.